I'm going to speak in English, and I'm going to speak about how to speak about family topics on Twitter. To begin with, I want to begin with saying that I love Twitter, and I wanted to have a show of hands. Who is on Twitter in this room? Good, very good. I'm on Twitter since about 7 years. I have 14,000 and a few followers. I'm mostly from the English-speaking world, and that's why I think it's a very important topic to talk about. I love Twitter. It's a great way of reaching out there and of participating in the public discourse. On Twitter, you can even talk about medieval topics. We have heard so much about medieval and us here being medieval, and I want to make another confession. I love the Middle Ages. A few days ago, I made a tweet where I said, if people say that the church believed that the earth was flat in the Middle Ages, you sit them down, you take Thomas Aquinas' Summa, you open the book, first question, first article, and you show them how Thomas says that mathematicians and natural scientists both agree that the world is a sphere, is round, and that's the Middle Ages for you. And that went on to build a very nice discussion on the internet about the Middle Ages. Okay, what I like about Twitter is that it is always a tad playful. It's always light, it is always positive, at least in my experience, and it's full of humor. And I think humor is probably the most important element on Twitter. Unfortunately, nowadays, I have to make a disclaimer, I don't speak that much about family in my tweets. I used to work 5 years as a spokesman of a bishop in Austria, Klaus Küng. He's the family bishop of the Austrian Bishops' Conference. Therefore, I spoke about family a lot for 5 years, and therefore I claim that I know something about talking about family. Nowadays, I speak about the Holy See, I speak about Hungary, Hungarian family politics, and sometimes about how to cook a goulash. You can find a very nice video on the internet on that. I have 6 children, as you heard, and a very courageous wife. Twitter is about moving images and moving stories. Therefore, I think that the best way to speak about family on Twitter is little stories from everyday life, little touching stories from everyday life that show the beauty and the uniqueness of our Christian family vision, preferably with pictures. I always found out that if you send a tweet with or without pictures, it will totally change the way people react to it. Stories win hearts. Stories are not preachy. Stories are not, you can't attack a story because it's about your personal experience. So stories are very useful. They don't look down on others. I give you one example. When I bring my youngest daughter to school every morning, she's 10 years old, and thank God, she still turns around 3 times on the way from me to the school door to look whether I'm still there. Yeah, and I tweeted that, of course, about a year ago, and then when the new school year began, the first 2 or 3 days, she ran off without looking back. So I didn't take the picture here because I never post pictures of my children, but I made a little tweet about that they grow up so fast and it's difficult for a father and all that. This is something positive and nice and touching, and of course, thank God, 4 days later, she began turning around again, so I tweeted that too. I think what we have to do as when we speak about families, to touch the deepest wishes and desires of people out there. And we've learned today already that family is the deepest experience and the deepest wish of most people. So let us cater to that wish. Let us tell them how great it is to have a family and to have a Christian family. Our message is family can be achieved in a realistic way, and it makes you happy. It is something that is worth making sacrifices for. And the royal way to family is the Christian way. That's my personal experience. As I said, I'm trying to stay positive all the time. We have already heard today, we are very much aware that there are many angry people out there who have different opinions on family topics, different biographies, different experiences. And if we speak about the beauty of family, as we as Christians, we must be prepared for anger, even if we're not aggressive, even if we talk positive. So how do we react to that? I think the best way is respect, warm-hearted reaching out, not battles. The strongest gestures could be if you disagree with someone on topics, but he says something on Twitter that you can agree with, like it, retweet it, be surprising. Don't be the cliché that the other side thinks we are. Interact with people who don't agree with you, but not in a snarky and trolling way, but in a friendly, gentle way. Because I think what will remain of your activity on Twitter is not the arguments you use. It is the way you interact. I had one friend from England who strongly disagrees with Orban's politics, strongly, and he says so every now and then. Writing on Twitter, I don't agree with Ambassador Habsburg on his government's politics, but he reaches out in a respectful way to people, and I respect that. And I think that is already very much if we can gain this for our vision of family. It's also a character thing, and I enjoy being friendly with people, but I think it is, especially on Twitter, it is the royal way, because Twitter forgives a lot, but it doesn't forgive bitter, angry battles. It doesn't forget that. Okay, my aim is to interact in a way with people on Twitter that if they are in a cul-de-sac in their life, when they can't go on, when their ideas don't seem to work anymore, they may remember that there is someone on Twitter that I've interacted with that seems to be gentle but happy at the same time, and Christian, and they might reach out to me. It has happened a few times that people have reached out to me via direct message after years of just following me. So this is, for me, a sign of hope how to act on Twitter. Just a few practical suggestions for a daily interaction on Twitter. I never post pictures of my spouse or my children, never. I don't understand why people can do that. But little objects from everyday life, plates with food spilled all over the table, are nice little touches of everyday joys of a large family. If you have a discussion on Twitter with someone and he's very angry, pray for him. Do you do that? I do that. I pray for people that I debate with on Twitter. Before you shoot out a hard reply to an opponent, say a prayer for that person that might achieve more than a tweet. Thomas Aquinas, Middle Ages, Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas, who lived in the dark Middle Ages, always gave the opponent's view a very fair and good hearing before arguing his own position. If you look at the Summa, you always have first the arguments of the enemy, and always the best arguments of the enemy, not bad ones. And our not very dark times could learn from this dark medieval ideas of Thomas Aquinas. Don't assume your opponent on Twitter fights in a dishonest way, because he might think the same about you. Don't block. I try not to block people on Twitter. It's difficult sometimes because some people are just crazy. I block if someone does pornographic or anti-Semitic things, but I don't block people I don't agree with as soon as they argue against me, which unfortunately many people too don't block. Remember what St. Peter asked Jesus, how often should I not block my opponent on Twitter? 7 times, and Jesus said 77 times. Don't forget what Jesus said. Love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you on Twitter. God bless you and your families.